This market crash will destroy more people than this virus. As for the economy, the horse is out of the barn, and now the barn is on fire. Manufacturing and services have been cratering for months. 40% of lost jobs aren't expected to come back. Washington may spend as much as $8 trillion in stimulus. The Fed is printing money faster than the spread of the coronavirus. And the rich is dancing. Our current financial system is in a state of chaos and cannot continue on its current path indefinitely, no matter how much the banking cartel would like to do so. There are too many classes of assets waiting to implode with just a slight uptick in interest rates. The system is broken and cannot and should not be fixed. Sure, it is fun to watch. The multi-trillion-dollar bailouts didn't go into the economy. It went into balance sheets. Zero effect except to enhance the party talk in the financial boardrooms. When the Fed expands its balance sheet, where does all this money come from? Last I heard, they're a private bank with no real revenue-generating service. At the rate they are going, we'll soon live to see tens of trillions of issuances. Kind of like a reactor core going critical, feeding upon itself. All this will result in mass deflation on luxury goods and inflation on essentials. 10 trillion on the sacred balance sheet is projected months ago. Is it magic? No, simply drop the ideology and look at the numbers, as this has been clear since kindly old Mr. Powell first stopped growing the balance sheet years ago, then reduced it while raising rates. Stopping the growth of the balance sheet about 2015 was error number 1, and this and further error in reducing the balance sheet and raising rates until last year were major errors number 2 and number 3. This caused the liquidity freeze last September when the balance sheet should have by last summer. Now the balance sheet should be 10 trillion as soon as it can be arranged. Powell strung out the credit markets until they began fraying and snapping because of his damned backward ideology, then, the virus panicked the poor worthless governors and mayors. Now we are facing a grade A depression. Negative posted rates might be avoided, but the balance sheet has to go to 10 now and 16 to 20 by the end of 2021. Why? So much of the economy has been destroyed that whatever it takes with no holdbacks or handwringing is the only glimmering slight possibility, and it has to happen before 330 million saps realize the politicians broke the world that they need to live in. Here is the analogy of what's really going on. You, me, and 4 other guys sit down to play a game of very high-stakes poker. How much are you bringing? $5 billion. $10 billion. How much are the others bringing? $800 million. $20 billion. It doesn't matter, because I am bringing all the money in the world, and then some, with my backer who has a money printing press. I am going to all in. Every time. And I won't even look at my cards. Now, who do you suppose wins that game? Every day and twice on Sunday. It was never supposed to be that way. Now you know why we are where we are. The Fed, covering for the power that be, will stop at nothing to keep the Potemkin village standing. Nothing. We're down to pure politics. They never miss an opportunity to rob the little guys while they stick the knife on your side. Right now, the Fed has a target rate for the Dow Jones. And that target is 25,000. They let it go up, and bring it back down to 25,000. They let it go down, and bring it back up to 25,000. And they don't let it go below 23,000, and they don't let it go above 26,000. Investors aren't at the controls of the markets, the Federal Reserve is. Expect it to go back down to 25,000. But, they do have a crash planned, and it will be the greatest crash our nation has ever seen. But they want the government to borrow even more before this happens. The Fed doesn't want to discourage our government from borrowing even more, by crashing the markets now. But they will have their scapegoat to blame the greatest crash in history on. Perhaps their scapegoat will be as simple as using the horrendous second quarter results as their excuse to pull it. Whatever scapegoat they use, I believe it will happen. I believe a worldwide market collapse is part of their planned and executed pandemic. Their goal is a worldwide dictatorship of the banking cartel. Once all financial authority is removed from the individual governments, as the Federal Reserve is doing at this time with our own US government, we will see the end game of their well-planned and executed pandemic. The secret elite at the very top needs all authority shifted from the governments and into the hands of the international banking system, which they control. They will succeed in creating a one-world financial system with the international banks at the head, telling governments what to do instead of the other way around. But in order to have a one-world financial system, they need to introduce the world to their one-world currency. So they must completely bankrupt our government, as is already being done, and they need to put US citizens in such a state of hopelessness, that we will all agree to this secret ruling elite's offer, accept our new world currency in place of your US dollar, and we will bail you out. And we will accept it. Can't have a one-world economy, a one-world financial system, and a one-world government without a one-world currency now, can they? And whoever controls this world monetary system, do control this world. Thus, a worldwide dictatorship with this secret fraternity at the very top at the controls. And their weapon of choice for the overthrow of this world is the monetary system. The more debt they print, the more debt needs to be printed to pay the more debt they printed before. It is a zero-sum game. The interest on the debt money is never created, so there is a scramble to get a big enough share of the debt to pay your debt and interest. The problem is there are then those left short, no matter how hard they worked or how well they planned. As the debt ball gets bigger, the interest ball gets bigger. Soon you have to print an enormous amount of debt money just so the interest is covered. At some point, the amount of debt money necessary to pay the interest is enough to break the system. We are close. It is my opinion that when the best rental property in the world, the US dollar no longer offers a positive yield, it will collapse and be rejected as the world's reserve currency. No yield, nobody wants your sorry-ass dollar. The good news is we will all be millionaires soon. The bad news: Zimbabwe is full of trillionaires. Welcome back to the Atlantis Report. You are here for your daily dose of the truth, the full truth, and nothing but the truth. There are two types of dollars. Those that we have to earn and those that they print. It just goes to show that the dollar has no value once people earn and save it. They simply debase it by printing in perpetuity. All the more reason to diversify into items of intrinsic value. There has to be a consequence, at some point, to all this money printing. Sounds like something cyclical is happening. More money printing requires even more money printing, requiring even more money printing, to ultimately buy stock ETFs. The machine is starting to eat itself. It's a bit like, for example, if you love eating steak and you can't get any, so you cut off your own leg to have some sirloin. How long can that last? It cannot last, especially not in US dollar. Other countries got away with it, but the US dollar cannot behave this. The USA is fast turning into Argentina basically. All these bailouts and programs require new treasuries to be issued, not to mention covering old treasuries that are expiring, and the market simply cannot support that many treasuries hitting the decks, especially at 0% interest coupon. So, in theory, in a real market, what should happen is the bond prices drop as the selling hits the tape, and the implied interest rate is increased. To stop that happening, the Fed is buying all the treasuries by adding them to its own balance sheet. So there is no market then, it's fake. The Fed will eventually blow up the US dollar, and we'll all be on Bitcoin. Maybe that's the idea, or maybe they just screwed up really badly. Stranger things have happened. The real economy has not been in good shape for a long time. The stock market has been an illusion that working stiffs hoped they could stagger across the finish line, and their stock retirements would solve their problems. Millions were already on the edge of bankruptcy long before Corona. They paid a grossly inflated price for a rapidly depreciating asset like a house. Prices have been falling for 18 months now. In hard times of the past, people always had some option to try and make it through. Work more hours, get a second job, the wife or even the kids get jobs. Hustle anything to pay the bills and survive. Today the government is actually telling people they can't work. How many government employees have been labeled as non-essential and lost their salary? 0. I cannot get my head around this. They are going to destroy the economy with no answer as to how it will magically start back up like it was before. It makes people believe in conspiracies because no one could be this stupid, but they are. 300,000 people die each year from medical errors by doctors in the USA. Where is the panic? That was the planning part of the pandemic. Reflate the Ponzi scheme. Bankrupt deplorable peasants. This goes deep. Question everything. They will never let a crisis go to waste. If one does not exist, they create one. They are resetting the system, but there will be no arrests. The power that be know the system is no longer sustainable, so they are either using the virus as a cover, or the virus was created to give cover. Create the crisis, and the sheeple will beg them to fix it. They fix it, all right. This is not a pandemic, it's a reset. When you realize this, then the pieces will come together, especially when you see that your very healthy friends and family will be alive and well in a year, although possibly struggling economically. The reason for the fake hysteria by governments is to move us to a cashless society and into digital money. And as an excuse to roll out their surveillance grid. Stocks are not the real economy, both have been propped up by trillions in debt for 12 years. It's another harvest. The first one didn't rape enough sheeple. This one will hurt. Dow 17K and change, then boom, rally time, then August-September vaporization to new lows. Then the Trump miracle rally, or whatever they will call the fake cure. We are now at the point when the Fed needs to crash the markets each time Treasury issues another trillion in treasuries. The markets can remain insane longer than you can stay sane. The central banking system is a money laundering system for the people in the right places. How will all the printing for helicopter money and whatnot interact with the limited supply of goods, services from the shutdowns? Hyperinflation will be end times, the paper money that people worship will be exposed as the false god. The money printing didn't just occur at the Fed level. It occurred when anyone rolled over their credit card debt into their mortgage. Notwithstanding, deflation is happening through massive demand destruction. But the demand was artificial, to begin with. Due to Fed money printing and low interest rates. Much better to have an orderly, controlled process. Bankruptcy and debt restructuring will happen at all levels, government, corporate, and individual. Hyperinflation can take virtually your entire life savings, without the government having to bother raising the official tax rate at all. The government will expect everyone to take a hit, except, of course, for the banks. They have the right to ruin you in their demands for their money. Weimar Germany, here we come. Utopia and its roasted leper pecker over a burned barrel. Maybe then they will understand frugality and conservatism. Probably not. More freebies. More police state safety. When people can't even do the right things for their own survival, how in the hell do these Marxists expect people to do the right things for the alleged whole? The absurdity is breathtaking. Politicians and Federal Reserve sociopaths should be quarantined for life to ensure the survival of the human race. Politicians and Federal Reserve sociopaths caused this depression, but sadly, they won't be held to account. The Fed injected trillions of dollars into the economy, and already bankrupted the country, and people think this is going to end well. Anybody who thinks this is going to end well should just drink the same aquarium cleaner that idiot drank in an attempt to save his life. The Fed can buy the effing dip anytime they want. All trades are winners when you buy with counterfeit money. Even when you sell for a 90% loss, on paper, it's all still a win. End the Fed. Before the Fed ends America.